Hey guys, and welcome back to the Days End Podcast. Today, we're really excited to have Ashley Ermis, the manager of Joli Boutique in Boerne, Texas, with us. Ashley has a real passion for fashion and community, and we're thrilled to hear about her journey, the impact she's made locally, and what it's like to run a thriving boutique. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, did I butcher the name of where you live? Is it
Yes.
Bjorn or is it Bourne? Yeah.
It's Bernie.
Are
Bernie.
you in Bernie? Okay, so you're in Bernie.
I'll tell you, yes, it's Bernie. So it's German.
Okay.
And like, we live in an area that's very German heritage influence. And like, there's lots of roads and counties and stuff. Like you just pick letters and don't pronounce them, or you pick ones and you just pronounce them when they're supposed to be silent. So yes.
Bernie, got it.
Bernie.
I will remember that for
Is
the
that
rest of my
outside
life.
of Austin or going
So
into?
we are about 20 minutes west of San Antonio.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
German though, that kind of seems like it's probably not too far from Fredericksburg.
Yeah, we are about 45
Okay.
minutes from Fred. Mm-hmm.
That makes total sense then. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sounds like my kind
Well,
of
I
place.
apologize for
It's
butchering
a fun place.
your,
No, you're
your
good.
time.
I'll tell you, at the shop, we get people in all the time at the store that are from out of town or out of the country, and they're like, how do you say the name? And I'm like, it's Bernie. So there's even a boutique on Main Street that they have a shirt, or they used to have a shirt that had it all spelled out phonetically, and then
Mhm.
underneath, like, it would be normal spelling, and then underneath phonetically, and then the name of their shop, because their name of their store gets butchered all the time, and so it'd be phonetically spelled out underneath too. So
Oh
it
goodness.
was always
Well, I will, like I said, I will
Great.
remember it for the rest of my life now.
I would
But
Right?
I'll probably butcher it every time,
That's okay.
even after
Don't
this.
worry
So if
about
we
it.
come down there, if I call it Bourne, I'm notorious for that. So.
Hey, it's all good.
No.
All good.
I'm very excited about this one because I think the last time you and I spoke about your time with Jolie, and I'm
Mhm.
saying that right, correct? Jolie.
Yes,
Okay.
Uh-huh.
With Jolie, I think at the time you guys were kind of like going through some like COVID stuff, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. And so
Yeah.
that's going to be later on in the podcast. We'll kind of touch on that, but I'm interested to kind of hear your background on it. You've got a background in photography, obviously.
Yeah.
And then how that led to your introduction to Jolie and even
Yeah.
starting with them.
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of rewind back a little bit further
Let's do
than
it.
college and photography. So I was talking with my dad this morning. 17 years ago this month, I got involved in the retail world. I started working at Aeropostale at the mall in Midland. And
Yeah,
so
oh,
man.
I worked there for almost 4.5 years. And I like, my parents were like, if you want things, you got to pay for them yourself. So you got to get a job. So I was like, okay, literally the day I turned 16 and was legally able to go get a job, I walked into Aeropostale because I loved their clothes. And I was like, this is it. This is where I want to be. And
I was a sucker too. I'm not going to lie. Yeah.
I mean,
I worked in Old Navy. We were probably there at the
Right?
same time. I was a jean
possibly.
folder.
Oh yes. I remember all the graphic tees, having to karate chop them and make sure they were all rainbow censored and all the things. But but during that time, I started shadowing a photographer because I've always had a camera in my hands. I love photographing anything and everything I can. And that just kind of led me to, I took a year off from college. I went a semester at Midland College, and then I just took the rest of the year off. And in like the rest, and almost into the next year. Cause I was just not sure what I wanted to do, because I was very involved in band, but I was also very, so it was like, do I want to do something musically? Cause I love music. Do I want to do, I'm a horrible artist when it comes to drawing. Can't draw a stick figure to save. Can't draw a stick figure to save my life, So
Yeah.
I was like, so how can I, and my parents were like, why don't you just go to art school? Why don't you go to photography school? And so when I started dating my husband, he is from Kerrville, which is where we lived for a brief period of time growing up. we reconnected and we dated long distance for a year and a half. And then I was just like, I'm done with long distance. You know, that we're very serious. I'm done with long distance. So I found the Art Institute in San Antonio and moved for art school.
That's a really nice one too.
Yeah, it was a great
pretty big
school.
leap.
Yeah, it was a big, going from Midland to San Antonio was definitely a culture shock.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
The same way it was for me going from Houston to West Texas, Midland, Odessa.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're like,
Yeah.
what in the world? So yours was probably kind of opposite. So I stayed in like this little bubble. It was probably like everything for me, from my little shoebox apartment that I lived in the medical center in San Antonio. It was like everything was within a 5-mile radius. I could get to Target in 5 miles. I could get to HEB in 5 miles. I could get to school in 5 miles. Everything was in a 5-mile radius because I was terrified to drive on any of the highways through the city. And so I promise this isn't a rabbit hole.
No, you're
It
perfectly
leads
fine.
into
We want all this. All the
I know.
backstory is the best
Some people
build
are
up.
like, okay. No, I'm just kidding. No,
Target,
but,
real cool.
Yeah, I love Target. No. But, you know, staying in that 5-mile radius and going to art school, there were days that I was like by myself in this huge city that I was like, okay, I have to get brave enough to learn to drive in the city. I have to get brave enough. I have to learn how to drive on 1604 and on 410 and on I-10 and drive downtown because it was nerve-wracking. Like I could get on I-10 and drive a straight line to go see my husband when we were dating because he was in Kerrville still. I was like, I can drive a straight line to Kerrville. Not a problem. Like that's easy. But it was like getting onto any other highways was a lot more terrifying than getting on the loop in Midland.
Yeah.
Like no.
And even when I lived in San Antonio, I think they're still and this is way back in the 90s. There's still like the same construction, I promise, still going on right now.
They're never going to be done with 1604. They're never going to be done with 410. Like it's constant. So, but so while I was practicing driving one day, it was my second quarter because our school, instead of semesters, we did quarters. So it was my second quarter of school. I was working at a Mexican food restaurant and I was just really tired of working for a Mexican food restaurant. And I found I was just practicing driving on side streets, trying to learn my way around San Antonio. I had only lived there, I think like 5 months. And I was driving down Days of Alla Road and I passed this little shopping center and there was a gas station and a bakery and this word boutique next to it. And I'm like,
draw you in. Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So I drove up a little further. I drove up a little further and I pulled a U-turn and then I, drove back in. And I just happened to walk in and was like, are you hiring? And they again, total God thing was they had opened a year prior and one of the owners, because there were 2 owners at the time, one of the owners, her stepdaughter, had just left for college. And so they were needing extra help because both owners are interior designers. And so it was like they were not only managing the boutique, but they were doing the interior design business as well. And so I gave them my name, gave them my number. This was in October that year. I didn't hear back from them until January. I was with mom and dad and we were actually at we were at one of the outlet malls in Dallas area and I got the phone call that said, I think it was Grapevine. I can't remember which outlet mall it was.
It probably
was.
It's a popular area that I know that
is.
your sister and your parents like to go to now too. So
yes. Well, dad lives in Grapevine now.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, so I got the call while I was with mom and dad and they were like, we want to hire you. I'm like, done. Like without a shadow of a doubt.
Jumping for joy. Yeah.
It was like so exciting. Cause I am, my parents always said, one day you'll make shopping a profession. And I, of course, being the oldest daughter, but middle child, I accepted the challenge. And I was like,
Yeah.
yes, I will. So I mean, that's what I did. I started with them January of 2022, or excuse me, 2012.
Mhm.
And I've been with Barbara Berger, our owner, ever since. So
12 years.
Oh, wow.
12 years.
I
Yeah,
didn't
it'll
even-
be 13 in January. So yeah,
It's a lot of clothes. Hats off to you.
It is a lot of clothes. A lot of clothes, but I
I think
love
after
it,
Old Navy,
so.
I was done. I said, I'm never folding a pair of jeans again. I'm getting out of here.
Yeah.
That was when
yeah.
I was 17. I never wanted to work again. That was my first job. I said, I can't do work. Work's not for me.
Well, what I love most about it, about retail, is the people. So when I worked at Aeropostale, they would always put me as the greeter. I mean, obviously you can clearly tell I have a very bubbly personality. I'm very, out there. I'm very outgoing. When it comes to people, I love just making somebody's day just by smiling at them. So I would be the greeter. That was always, there were days, especially during holidays, I was like, please don't put me as greeter. I don't want to be greeter. And they're like, but you're good at it.
Yeah.
But I would find that I would like to watch people, like I would people watch as I'd be standing at the front, and greeting everybody. And I just, as that grew and I started leaving corporate retail and going into working for small business retail, meeting the customers, it has become my favorite part. And getting to know people's stories, getting to meet people from all over the world. It's fun. And that's kind of what has drawn me to it. There is absolute chaos, and there are ups and downs and highs and lows in retail, but it's still, the people are just what keep me there. So, plus the clothes. I mean, pretty close too, but
yeah, you have really nice, I catch up on Facebook, and it's interesting. I didn't realize that it was that long of a duration. So that's really exciting. I think just from like the trend, what you're going to be able to relay in terms of like the transition between what was in for, 2012 and the challenges from then to now. And I'm just really interested to hear how that has developed. And obviously you guys are doing things also outside of just inside the boutique too, that is stirring up some stuff for Bernie. And I would imagine that would be a part of the relevancy for the duration and length and longevity of the company and the boutique, because like I said, with COVID, that really stirred up a lot for retailers.
That was a tough one.
Barbers and that sort of thing. But I'm interested, from 2012 to now, current, what drew you? Obviously, we know what drew you into managing the store, but over that period of time, have you kind of put your own? Has the owner given you an opportunity to put your own like stamp on, and on the store itself?
Absolutely, I feel like definitely I try to stay true to what Barbara's theme has always been with the store. Our biggest I guess mission with Jolie that we have honed in on over the last few years has just really been, instead of finding trends and staying current with trends and fast fashion and things like that, we are a higher end boutique, but we carry brands that are classic and timeless, and they are going to stand the test of time. They fit women ages 30, 35, all the way up. Like, so I have some customers that are in their 80s, like late 80s.
Okay.
So, it's just finding, I think with that, Barbara has definitely been so kind in giving me a little bit of freedom as to having opinions on what to bring into the store. She started letting me, started allowing me to participate in the buying for the store about 4 or 5 years ago, and which has been awesome. So getting to decide like what to bring in and how many, and it's total chaos. When we say we go to market, everyone's like, that sounds like so much fun. It's like, yes, it's so much fun, but it's a lot of work too, because you not only have to think of what you like, you have to think of what other customers like. And so we have with Barbara, when I started doing buying, it was Barbara and I both, just the two of us, and she's in her 60s and I'm in my 30s. And so, well, late 20s at that time when I started, but getting to have two different age groups looking at the same line and getting different opinions, and trying to branch different age gaps has been awesome. And so I think that's helped too, is not only having an older view, or more mature view, of, a target demographic, but also having a little bit of a younger, modern, generation as well, kind of tying it all together. So
yeah, you see, like a mix of both. And I was actually going to ask you, like, since you guys do focus more on the timeless classic, would you say that that's for a boutique? Would you say that that's more difficult than keeping up with trends? Or do you have an opinion there? Do you have any knowledge?
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I definitely think, there's there's 1,000, there's millions of fish in the sea. I definitely think there are customers for every style, like type of boutique. Like in Boerne, we have boutiques that their prices probably start in the 30s and go up to the 70s, 80s. And then we have boutiques that start like in the 60s and go up to the hundreds. And then you have some like ours where we probably start 70, and go all the way up. Like some of our pieces are 300, and then obviously you have like the very higher end Neiman Marcus style boutiques as well. But I definitely think it's, it definitely kind of sets us apart too. But it's, everybody, we get Amazon shoppers in all the time that are like, oh, I can just find this on Amazon. It's like, yes, you can, but you're not going to be able to try it on. Or, not necessarily like the lines we carry. A lot of the lines we carry, you can't find on Amazon, which is fantastic. We are very picky about the lines we carry. They need to be made. We try really hard to have them made in high quality workrooms where they're not made in China, like in sweatshops in China. They are made in Canada. They are made in Europe, made here in the US. So or made in Mexico, made in Turkey, kind of all over. We're very picky when it comes to the quality of our pieces. And a lot of people can see that. But that's one thing we battle with Amazon is, you can get it right away. But also when you're shopping with us versus shopping with Amazon, you can see it, you can touch it, you can try it on, you can figure out the fits, and, figure out the colors, whether the color's right. Because sometimes your screen on your computer is not calibrated the right way, or on your phone. And so, what might be gray might come in and it's green, just.
Right.
Amazon's
such a gamble.
I mean, constantly.
Such a gamble.
Yes.
Will can tell you about some of my buys. I bought a lawnmower on Amazon, and I didn't read the reviews, right? I got an all-electric lawnmower, and it came in. It was like a mini mower. My 4-year-old son passed me, and he started laughing. He slapped his knee laughing, and he said, "It looks like my toy. It looks like something I would have." And I'm like,
but
Amazon.
That's the thing. And that's definitely something, that sets us apart also is the customer service. I have amazing sales associates that work on the floor that we do not want our customers leaving the shop wearing something that when they get to their friend's house, they're like, what are you wearing? We want them to get to their friend's house. Yeah, want them to get to their friend's house and be like, oh my gosh, what are you wearing? Like, where did you get that? Because we want the review to come back to us. We want that friend to come in and say, my friend Debbie bought this jacket. I absolutely have to have it. And, and of course we would be like, well, we only carry one of each size. We don't carry multiple sizes. So it's very unique. So if you're different sizes, yes, we have it. If not, Debbie has it. You'll have to borrow it from Debbie. So.
Oh, wait, interesting. So the pieces are individual?
Yes. So what we do, so how we do our buying is, so some boutiques that are, that have a lot of stock and lots of fashion and a lot of more of the online boutiques, they buy in bulk. And so they buy multiple sizes of each piece. Excuse me, they buy multiple pieces of each size. and so what we do is we buy one of each size. We might buy 6 of them, but we'll buy like a extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, or we'll buy a size 4, a size 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Kind of. So just to kind of keep it. Yes.
That was it. Was that like for like the purpose of like keeping the boutique fresh? So like that's out after 6 pieces. And so now I can
like it.
Bring something else.
And that way too, our customers, because we are in such a small town, and every day I improve that our world is such a small world, because my sweet associate, at least once a week, she has someone come in who she knows, or someone else knows her, or she worked with, or, she meets someone from one of the towns she has lived in across the state. But because of that, we want everyone to feel unique and different with their own personal styles. So we don't want the same customers who are both members of the same country club showing up to the same event at the same country club, and they're wearing the same exact
same
outfits.
thing.
Right. Not selling just to get the sell. I think that's why I think you guys are thriving because of that. Because everything I've heard, you guys are on top of it. Like your business partner, she's a little older.
Yeah.
And you guys balance each other out. How long have you guys been in business? So what was this business from 2012?
So Jolie, my boss, our owner, opened the shop in October of 2010. So this is year 14.
That's incredible. And that's incredible for a boutique. I mean, I don't know.
Yes.
I've seen so many boutiques fly in and out of Midland. It's unreal. They'll be open for a year, and that's a tough thing. So kudos to you guys. You guys found your niche. Yes. If you guys sold the men's line, I would get something off y'all.
I would tell you. So we did try that at one point. We did reach into the men's market. But then another shop came in and they just kind of blew all men's stuff out of the water. And we're like, well, okay.
You got me sold over here.
Right?
I'm inspired.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, in businesses, especially since COVID, businesses just have to constantly pivot. You have to constantly, transition from like, okay, this isn't working. So like this isn't selling. This category of stuff isn't selling. Okay, so let's transition over here to like for our store recently, baby gifts and men's gifts just weren't selling. So we were like, okay, what's selling? What's a need that we clearly aren't meeting for our customers? And it was gifts. We get ladies in, they're like, I'm going to play mahjong, or I'm going to play pickleball, and I just need a little gift. And so that's just kind of what we've shifted into. We now carry handmade pottery from Turkey. We carry beautiful beaded serving pieces that are made in Boerne. We carry a variety of napkins and, just little hostess gifts and new purse lines and just kind of little grab and go gifts, just to kind of keep up with.
And it sells.
And it
sells.
It's been selling, which is great. And it's keeping people interested and keeping people knowing what's coming around. So, which has been fantastic.
They keep the ball rolling. That is an important thing right there.
You said it earlier, just probably 5 minutes ago or so, kind of the battle between a boutique style retailer and Amazon, which is, Amazon has its functions and that sort of thing. And if you really need something very quickly, especially household items, et cetera, or certain medicines, like that's great. But I will say there's just something about, and it's interesting, my wife has gotten me into this. And so we live in McKinney, and the McKinney Square is huge for its small.
I love the McKinney Square.
It's like my favorite place. It's our favorite place to be. We could walk it every weekend and really never need to leave it. But, and I won't name any stores just so we don't have like conflict of interest or anything, but that's like going into a boutique, and it's probably not a huge male influence for going into boutiques. They probably are sitting outside on the bench. I find myself wanting to go into it because it is the atmosphere. It is the customer service. It is the unique feel that this is, even if it is a franchise, each location is, or a smaller franchise, each location is individually like designed and put together. And so you get this feeling of one just being in the store. So to have the types of merchandise that you guys carry, and to further promote that kind of like individual feel it is something that you just can't get from Amazon, period. But
exactly.
On that note, when it comes to competition, you talk a lot about community over competition, right? And Bernie, probably you said it just a minute ago, which is, we tried to do the men's stuff, but then another retailer came in and kind of blew that out. So, but you talk about community over competition. How do the local businesses of Boerne work together, and why do you think that's so important for small towns like Boerne?
So, I definitely, why it's so important first for community over competition definitely is because you can't have one without the other. You can't have just one boutique. You have to have a great synergy. You have to have a mix. You have to have a flow, just like a mall. You can't have one store in a mall and be a mall. You can't have one restaurant. If you ever notice, most restaurants, most restaurants aren't standalone. There's at least 2 or 3 within a several mile radius. And same with shopping centers. There's at least a good, couple different, shops. Might be different what they sell, but they at least are feeding off of each other.
Variety,
yeah, you have a good variety, and that's what helps Boerne thrive, and what keeps getting people to come back to what we call the Hill Country Mile. So how we achieve that community over competition, I sat the last 2 years, I just stepped down after I just served my final term as the chair of the Boerne Retailers and Restaurants Association.
Oh, wow.
And what we do is we meet once a month. We sit down, we plan events to get people to Main Street. So we have events like an event that women in our town go nuts over called Diva Night. It happens twice a year. We stay open late. We serve wine. We have music. Stores get DJs. Stores do balloon displays. We just kind of go all out, and it's just a really big party on Main Street. And a big girls' night out. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Our next one's coming up in November, and that's the fall one is always my favorite. Yes, come.
We're coming.
Come too.
That actually,
we're going to girls' night and listening to DJs out on Main Street. We'll be there.
Great. It's a big old party.
I would love to see you there, Cody.
I would love to see it. Like, I could just see you walking in Jolie, being like, "I'm here."
He would be the star of the show. Cody has that effect. I don't know how he does it. He would.
Yeah.
But.
Oh yeah. No. But we plan events like that. We have a Christmas event towards the weekend after Thanksgiving called Dickens on Main, which was actually started by the retailers, just to again drive up business for the holidays. And so within this organization, that's just something that we try to really communicate, that we want these events, and it's not just for one store in particular. It's, we want to kind of involve everybody, because we're all team players. Main Street wouldn't exist if we all weren't here. So we're all working for the same goal, as we want our businesses to thrive. So how we kind of combat the competition is a lot of us communicate as far as what lines we carry. So that way you're not seeing the same brands up and down Main Street. So not all boutiques carry in Boerne. Not all boutiques carry the same brands. If they do carry the same brands, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to carry the same styles from that brand.
Y'all have y'all's marketing down. I just got to cut you off. Y'all's marketing is like, the competition. Are like, we know if they're wearing this, we got this down.
Yeah.
And we got some goodie bags on top of it.
Would you say that's options over competition then? Basically, so there's like, with there being a variety, you're able to go to a different store if you don't find what you need from Jolie, but it's not necessarily going to get the same item. Right. No,
absolutely. My husband thinks I'm just absolutely bonkers because on my days off, I love to just get out and walk Main Street. I love to go in all the shops, especially because I work a full-time job. I'm at Jolie Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. sometimes. And So I'm there during business hours. So I don't get to go into a lot of the boutiques. I don't get to shop them as much as I want to. But when I do, I get to go and walk in and see what lines they carry, see what fashions they're carrying. And that way, when a customer comes to us and they might find a top with us, but they can't find pants with us, we know we can send them to our next door neighbor who might have who's same target demographic, but a different style, might have different sizing than we do, might reach a broader, might be like our shop is probably a little dressier. We're probably like a dressy casual shop, I would say. But then there's other stores that are same target demographic, but probably a little more casual. And so they're like, I just want a casual top, or so we're like, okay, you're going to go next door, or you're going to go down the street. You're going to go here. If you're looking for kids clothes, you're going to go across the street to this shop. So we try to all send each other business when we can.
Right.
To work
in
there's
a community, right?
So you guys mesh pretty well. So all the boutiques, mesh, and you guys kind of, for the most part,
we mesh for the most part. I would say, we're a bunch of women-owned businesses.
So no hair pulling, no.
Not all the time.
No fist fights on Main Street.
No, there's no elbows being thrown. No, but we just.
We're not a controversial podcast, but I am interested. Is there, and you don't name any names, but is there ever pushback when it comes to those meetings? And do you ever get like a retailer, maybe they're new or have they all kind of been the same for a good bit of time? So there's relationship.
There's definitely going to be pushback. You definitely have businesses that don't participate in the organization. There are businesses that, they choose to march to the beat of their own drum, which is totally fine. They kind of stay in their own lane, which is great. And it's just kind of like, okay, well, we're going to be over here in our lane. If you want to be in there, and if you want to come over here, that's fine. Like, we'll support you still no matter what. But there's still pushback. You do get some buyers on the street that go and kind of see what other lines are doing well for shops and try to get those lines. But that's going to happen with any small business, all over the world. So, it's just it's like, oh, that's doing well. Okay, well, maybe I want to, do that too. It's like, you can't have, there's more than one style hairbrush. You know what I mean? It's like, but it started from one design, and someone was like, oh, well, that person created the hairbrush, so I need to go make a hairbrush, but make it different, but it'll still be the same concept, but then there'll be two, so that's kind of, I don't know where that analogy came from, but it's like, it's probably because I'm like staring at my makeup vanity right now, but that's how it is. You have, there are thousands of clothing lines out there, and it just try to hone in on your niche, and you just stay in your lane.
Yeah, you guys kill it.
Well,
you guys are doing a good job. I could tell you that by the way you guys are talking. You're not falling behind the curve. I'll tell you that. You guys are staying ahead of it.
That curve is a slippery one.
Yeah. I would imagine that would kind of be a harder style of doing it, not being willing to participate in the community aspect of the way you guys share the responsibility of keeping that community alive and thriving. Because then if you're always tailing behind and kind of watching what other people are doing, you're usually late to the party. And so then I imagine styles could change and that sort of thing. But
absolutely.
So the Boerne Retailer Style Show has really become a big deal, right? So how did all that start, and what has been the impact on the community and specifically the Kendall County Women's Shelter?
Yeah, so in 2019, there was kind of a lot of chaos happening on Main Street. There was a property owner who was wanting to bring in a CVS to the historical mile, and everyone was like, absolutely not. No. In Boerne, starting from Bandera Road all the way up, as you head north, or kind of northwest towards Fredericksburg area, it's nothing but small businesses. Like you've got a Wendy's and a Walgreens, but then after that, it's nothing but small business owned shops
Yeah.
and, banks and restaurants and things like that. And so when the CVS was going in, we were like, absolutely not. We need to, but also we were going through a transition because, it was the year before an election year and there was lots going on with that. And so we, at the beginning of the year in January, we just kind of came out of a slump, I think retail wise for a lot of us. And my boss, our owner, Barbara, she came to me and was like, okay, what else can we do? What else can we do to get people to notice us as a shop, but to make an impact in our community, and to, expand on choosing a nonprofit every year to serve. Because that's what she has always done, is she chooses a nonprofit every year that we partner with, and we donate. Like, we do drives at Christmas time, or we'll do clothing drives or toy drives, or stock the pantry drive, like for food pantries and stuff like that. So she was like, what can we do? And we had just been involved prior to, in the end of 2018, we were involved in a fashion show style event that benefited, we had been a part of that for about 3 years in San Antonio.
Okay.
And with that event, she chose a different nonprofit every year. So we kind of ran with that idea, as far as the concept of it, finding a nonprofit in our community to benefit. So we naturally, being women, a woman-owned business and woman-managed business, we paired with the Kendall County Women's Shelter, and she was like, okay, let's present this to the retailers group. So I took it to the Retailers Association and said, look, this is what we want to do. I think it'll be great. I think it could be really fun. It could bring a lot more publicity, not just to the women's shelter, because it is so, so desperately needed.
Yeah.
I hate the fact that we have women's shelters. Like, I know, I'm glad we have women's shelters, but I hate the fact that we have them.
Yeah, it doesn't make it. You kind of wish that they're not in that circumstance. Yeah.
Exactly. And it just kind of breaks my heart. Especially at being a mom and having to, take your babies out of an environment they know and love and have grown up with, but it's healthy for them to be taken out of that, whatever violent environment that they are in. So we were like, okay, this is what we want to do. We went to the Retailers Association and they said, okay, have fun. And
just like
I
that?
was like, okay, so and my next thought was, so who's going to plan it? And they went, you are. Oh, okay. Never done this before.
Yeah.
I'm one of the youngest members on the retailer committee, or in general out of the retailers group. And, I was 28 at the time, and I went, what? Sorry. Me?
Yeah.
Me? What? Okay. And so I went back to Barbara and I'm like, they loved it. They loved the pitch. They thought it was great. Now, how do we execute it? And she was like, okay, now we're going to get sponsors. And she kind of walked me through how we do it. And so in March of 2019, we started kicking it off and chose September in the fall as a great time, because that's most stores get their fall clothing in and they kick off they start kicking off their fall fashions, and it's a great, Kickstarter to the upcoming season. And it was a month that we didn't have anything really event wise with the Retailers Association going on. So we were like, okay, how can we expand on this? Our next thought was then, how could we get not just the fashion boutiques involved? How can we get the gift stores involved, like the Christmas shop and Pixie and Lottie Dog, that have, little knickknack gifts that you can pick up to give your daughters? Or we were like, how can we get them involved? and get promoted just as much as the shops that walk the runway.
Yeah.
And so we definitely kind of expanded on it's a sweat equity event. It's one where none of the retailers have to pay to be a part of it. All you have to your main requirement is you have to be a brick and mortar. You have to be a member of the Retailers Association, and you have to be a brick and mortar. And so that way we can just kind of all come together under one roof. One of the biggest things from the very first year I remember is someone went up to the owner of the Christmas shop and said, I had lived in Boerne my entire life, and I had no idea we had a Christmas store. And the Christmas store had been here over 10 years at that point. And I went, that is why we're doing what we're doing. Not just for the exposure. And not just for the exposure. But then our first year, we, again, had no idea what I was doing. It was just kind of like, okay, we're going to get sponsors. So the sponsor, what we do as far as like raising money and paying for the event and things like that, we get sponsorships. Mm-hmm. And so we have different levels of sponsorships, and each sponsor then writes a check as a donation to the women's shelter. And then the money, then the women's shelter helps fund the event as far as paying for like the runway and stuff like that.
Does it happen? Is it happening there on the women's shelter premises?
No.
Okay.
So the women's shelter premises, the shelter part is an undisclosed location in town.
I've got
but
you.
they do have a thrift store, and then their general office is at an offsite location, not far from actually where I live. And so it's just for security reasons,
Sure. Yeah.
Women, especially when women are fleeing domestic violence situations, they just want to just go, and they want to go somewhere where the person they're fleeing from can't find them, and they need to go somewhere safe.
You've educated me there, just because I apologize for being so naive. When I hear shelter, I think you think the most common is like a homeless shelter, right? Obviously, it sounds like it's probably not the same thing. So I know that my church kind of did a serve day, and I think that my wife Sarah went and may have done something along those lines at one of those shelters. I just didn't know that that's what it was called, but that's very, very interesting.
Yeah,
that makes
they
sense.
actually have a big facility. They just
it's just they kind of go. A lot of the bigger towns, like San Antonio has one. 9 times out of 10, they're at capacity. They don't have enough space for the women who are fleeing. And women stay there a week. They stay there a couple months. If they need extended stay, they find ways to help the women find homes or find an apartment as kind of like a transition home, to help them get back on their feet, get their self, especially if they've become independent or become dependent on the income from their abuser. They have to find a job, especially if they have kids. They have to get income somehow. So the women's shelter here in town really thrives on that. They help educate the women on just in fields they're interested in, finding what they're interested in. They have counselors. They have a 24-hour, 24/7 hotline. And so I just, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, I just have such a passion when children are involved. With my mom being a preschool minister of 20 plus years, I grew up around kids. I always served in preschool ministry as a Sunday school teacher. I was a babysitter. That technically was my first job. At the age of 13, I started babysitting. And I babysat all the way up until I started having babies in my 20s. But I love kids. I have a passion for kids. And especially being a female, that's just something you don't want those babies to hurt too. You don't want those babies to grow up in those situations as well.
Right. Yeah, nurturing spirit.
Yeah. So that's just kind of why we focused on the Kendall County Women's Shelter for this event, because there was lots of nonprofit stuff happening at that time, and that was just one of the nonprofits in our town that, to me, in my opinion and observation, was not getting the focus it needed. It was not getting the funds. It was not getting, it was getting grants from the state. Like every shelter, every nonprofit gets to apply for government grants, and they get some money from the government to kind of help pay for their facilities and pay for repairs on like gates and stuff like that. And furniture and things. But it's like there's always extra. There always needs to be more. Pay for activity crafts for the kids while they're in the shelter. Pay for additional clothing for the women, because sometimes they leave and they only have the clothes on their back.
I can't even imagine.
I know. It's like once you start getting involved in the organization and start finding a nonprofit that you're very passionate about, you just kind of dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's just kind of one of those, I was like, this is it. The women's shelter is who we're going to be benefiting. At the time when we presented the event, we thought we would change the nonprofit every year. Our first year we were able to raise, and they were able to benefit about $6,000. Wow. And to me, I was like, that's awesome. That's $6,000 more than they could have. And then, so after that event happened in 2019, in October of 2019, I was like, okay, when's the next one? We wanted to shoot for a spring show of 2020, and then COVID happened. And it made us postpone our show. So we were going to postpone it from March to September. May to September. And then it didn't get better. We still had capacities that we couldn't have, more than so many people in a certain area in September. You had to wear masks. You still had to social distance. And we're like, well, there's no way you can do a New York style fashion, like runway show
without people.
Social distance. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
just doesn't work.
It takes the fun out of it.
Right. Yeah. We still kept the fundraiser going though through 2020. What was awesome is those who bought tickets for the May show and for the September show, and the sponsors who we gathered in 2020, all but like 2 people rolled their sponsorships over and their donations for their tickets over to the next year. So in doing that, the people who purchased tickets and the sponsorships in 2020, we raised over $14,000.
Wow.
Which was awesome. So we more than doubled what we raised the year before. And then we gave early bird access. Everyone who purchased tickets in 2020, they got early bird access to the fashion show for 21. And it's kind of just blown my mind and grown every year since, to the point where last year we raised over $30,000. Which is
that's okay. So 6 to 14 to 30, which
6, 14 to 30
from
the
years. Moment of like, wait, me to where it is now. Yeah. This is perfect because, and I want to preface, because the next question is going to be pandemic related, but I want to preface that by saying this episode is so important because I can't tell you how many times that Cody and I, during season 1 of figuring everything out with the podcast, I even asked my wife, and not to throw her under the bus, but I'm like, hey, would you like to join me for a podcast? And she did it eventually, but she went, why would I do that? You guys are an all guy podcast. I'm like, no, we're not. So this is so significant. Season 2, we're so passionate. I think that I can speak for Cody as well. We're so passionate about our wives and the things that they do, from business to being mothers to being a part of that community. I'm always pushing or trying to push Sarah, or encourage. I don't want to say push. She does it on her own, but encourage her to go out and involve herself. So that story specifically, that portion was so, I feel like it's going to be a huge impact because everybody looks at TDEP and they're like,
my biggest cheerleader through all of this, my biggest cheerleader has been my sweet husband. He sees how stressed I get, like starting the week of my birthday in the beginning of September until right after the show ends. I am nothing but a frazzled mess, and he is just so sweet and so kind, and just he shows up and he is helpful with the kids, and he is my biggest cheerleader, and I could not do any of this without him. He's got my kids right now downstairs. So
yeah, Sarah has mine, and I'm sure they're driving around, and he's probably sleeping in the car seat or something.
Right.
But that being said, I'm curious because 2019, you're excited for the next one. 2020 rolls around. We know what happens with the election. Not only was it an election, but then you have the pandemic. And so we're interested. The pandemic shook things up for everyone, especially small businesses, particularly barbershops, clothing, merchandise. If you couldn't go and for stores that required bodies in them, you were devastated, right? And so how
a lot of places didn't make it.
Yeah.
How did, and I'm really surprised that some places that did, but how did you and Joli Boutique get through those times? Could you walk us through like what that looked like?
Yeah, I mean, I remember it was in March. We were just adamant. We were like, we're not closing our doors. We're not closing our doors. You know, slowly boutiques on Main Street started like, hey, we're closing our doors. Yeah. We're going to go to online. Like, we're just, you know, we don't know when we're opening again, but we're going to follow the government. And we were like, we can't. We have to keep our doors open. We have to, absolutely have to. And finally, when the mayor of our town at the time, our former mayor, came out and said, everybody's got to shut their doors. We were devastated. I mean, I remember sitting, my boss Barbara was in her office on the other side of the shop that, at our first location when we were here when we moved here to Boerne. And I was in my office on the other side of the store, and I just remembered sobbing, just because I'm a people person, right. And going from seeing dozens of people daily to absolutely no personal interaction with anybody, not seeing any facial expressions from people. It was devastating. We kind of just were like, okay, what do we do? So we pivoted. We went from selling in the store to a somewhat decent online shop.
Enough to get by, right?
Enough to get by, absolutely. Yeah. Enough to help keep the lights on. I will tell you, Jolie would not be here without my boss's interior design business, Studio Domain. Studio Domain was the main reason why I was able to still go to work. I'm very blessed by our owner, Barbara, because I am actually employed by both businesses. I am employed by the interior design business, so I'm her design assistant, but I'm also her store manager. But I'm especially during that time, I was very blessed because I could bring Caden to work with me. He could stay in my office. I could stay in my office, kind of secluded from her, work on my computer. We could sit social distance in a common area in the shop that we had at 189 South Main. And we were able to still talk, and she and I could still see each other, because it was like, okay, what do we do? What do we do? We can't, we can't, but seeing
I think everybody felt that way,
Yeah. And,
terrible times.
My husband was still going to work because he worked at a golf course. And so that was still considered essential. And because Barbara is an interior designer for custom builders, people still need homes. So interior design business fell under the construction category. So I was still able to be employed. But in doing that, in my downtime from the design business, I was able to run the online business. But also we ran like a speakeasy shop when they started to slowly lighten things up. Those who wanted to didn't want to shop online, but wanted to still
open up the garage. Come on in. Just come through the back door.
Yeah. It's like, come to the back door. And that's actually what we did. We're like, hey, we have a back door. Like, park your car in the parking lot and walk down the alley and just come to the back door.
Four knocks, and we know it's you.
Right? It's like, just text me when you're here, and I'll let you in. But I mean, and we would provide social distance shopping if somebody wanted that. So we would wear a mask if we wanted to. 9 times out of 10, people were like, no. But they, we just had to pivot. But like I said, we would not be here without our owner, Barbara, and her design business. You know, and it was a restarting year. It was like that year would have been 10 years in business for Jolie, because we had opened in 2010. And so it just kind of was like, okay,
a reset.
We're starting all over, and it was crazy. But yeah.
Question on that. So to go into COVID, shut your doors, mandatory. Okay, pivot. I'm online now, right?
Yeah.
Get this together. Like, I'm online now,
right.
And then slowly get back into the release of kind of doing the speakeasy, social distancing. Did you see like a huge, and I'm curious on this, like how it is today, but like, did you see a huge reluctancy for people to want to come back? Because it was like, okay, I think for a lot of people and a lot of companies, the reason why I asked this is because once, just like going to work and then all of a sudden you're remote work, right? A lot of companies didn't want to come, or a lot of employees didn't want to come back once the office was back up.
Yeah.
So was there like a difficult time during that?
I definitely think there was. It was like a growing period. It was definitely a learning, like trying to get back. Once the holiday season started kicking off around October, we started, like, our sales finally started tracking up again. During like June, July, August, everybody was still very hesitant because they were starting to go back to school. So they were starting to see the COVID numbers influx, or that's what they would say.
I was like round. Yeah.
And so they were still navigating that after being virtually in school and ending school virtually, and then going back to, do we start school virtually again or do we not? Like, what do we do? There was definitely some reluctancy. I think with the business, especially the boutiques on Main Street in Boerne. I can't speak for everybody else in the nation, but at least in Boerne, we had lots of stores that still provided masks and hand sanitizer, and just wanted to make people feel comfortable to come back. Our chamber and our city ran a campaign for us on Main Street that said, you know, someone came to each shop, filmed us flipping our signs from closed to open, filmed us opening our doors, or putting, you know, working with a customer, or, you know, just welcoming people back into our stores, saying, hey, we're still here. We still love you guys. We still want to serve our community. And so that's kind of where it went from there. It just, it was reluctant,
stronger?
but I would say now, taken a couple of years. 21 again was still an adjustment period because it was right after the election, and there was just lots of transitions. We weren't sure what was happening with the economy. People were still pushing COVID guidelines and things like that. But I think later into 21 was when we started seeing more of an influx of people getting back to shopping. During the summer of 21, everyone just started spending their money. Instead of spending money on their homes and doing home projects and remodels and things like that, they started spending money on traveling. And they were like, okay, we've been stuck in our home. We're going to knock down all four walls and we're going to rebuild something. Yeah. Now we've been stuck within these four walls that we've been building. We need to go somewhere. So we started seeing an increase in that because Boerne has become more of a destination for tourists. I mean, people come from all over the world, like I said, just to come to our little town. But yeah, I mean, there's been such a transition. It's changed.
Or if that
shopping.
helped, you know, to already have like a niche kind of environment, right? That brick and mortar hometown feel, you know, you can kind of come and see some people that you're probably familiar with. I wonder if that kind of helped that process, but also just, I would imagine it would tie back to the fact that you guys have that system for the retailers to get together and work together. So that's really exciting that I think for a lot of companies, they weren't able to come back as strong as they were before, which was a tough pill to swallow, right?
Yeah. I mean, we definitely had oh gosh, I can't remember the number, but we had multiple businesses on Main Street that just decided, either their owners were at the point of retirement age. And so they're like, I'm just going to retire, cut my losses and be done.
Yeah.
And then there were others that were like, I just can't physically, financially keep doing this. I have to find something else to do. And so we had quite a few businesses on Main Street shut their doors.
Hmm.
And it
So new faces?
New faces, new businesses. But, again, that's retail. There's always a revolving door of retailers. Someone is always retiring, or someone's changing paths, or, someone's always doing something. The economy changes. There's always something changing. But I think that's retail in general. That's life in general.
It really is.
Everything's changing. There's not always going to be a JP Morgan Chase. At some point that will go away, who knows, but God has different plans for everybody. And so
he certainly does.
Where we go.
It's interesting, the comparison, because for my company, transportation, we were considered essential, and nothing boomed more during that time than aggregate delivery and freight delivery, I think, in general, because you're isolated in your own truck and that whole deal. So for us, we were like booming, but it was difficult because we are a very community driven company too.
Right.
And our owners very involved in the community and TechStot and that sort of thing. And so to see other smaller businesses, even other smaller haulers go out of business was difficult. One, because you care about them, you care about their families. Yes, there could be some competition there, but also because it can disrupt the ecosystem. So for instance, like some of the companies on the main street for you guys going out of business, now you don't have as many people that can kind of keep in the same vicinity and keep that circulation, I would imagine.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and I didn't realize that's what you did. I didn't realize you were in the freight company business. But, with the interior design business, what we struggled with was we had customers. We are with customers from the groundbreaking until the very last light bulb goes in. We do rugs, we do custom furniture. And since we do that, we had clients moving into their homes that they couldn't get their furniture because it wasn't because of the freight companies. It was because of the manufacturers. Because the manufacturers then had to shut down. And so what would take 6 to 8 weeks started taking 14 to 18, 20, it started taking longer. And so it was just a ripple effect. And it was like, you don't realize how everything works together until you start realizing that it's gone.
Concrete was one for us, and it still blows my mind. I'm like, I guess a manufacturer couldn't get people in to make concrete. I guess I need to pop in or get on YouTube and look at how it's made for concrete, because I don't understand how that was affected. It was like toilet paper, but here we are,
my gosh.
2 years,
2
years without concrete, it feels like. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's really interesting. And I'm curious, what's next for Joli Boutique? You guys are coming back, you're striving, you're flourishing. You made it through a really tough season for the entire nation, the entire world, the community. Hopefully, it sounds like obviously was what you guys are doing with the women's shelter is starting to develop and increase. And I would only imagine that's going to continue that uptick, and we're supporting that as well. But any exciting plans or events coming up that we should keep an eye on specifically? That's like a new development, or is it just a continuance of like?
It's right now it's just a continuance. I think for Jolie, like what's next for Jolie, again, like I said, God only knows. God has an awesome plan. My sweet sales associate is constantly reminding me, we work as unto the Lord. We give it all back to him. And once we start refocusing on that, then he can only just grow it from there. I really think we have finally found our niche after, 7, almost 8 years in Boerne. And we have honed in on loyal customers, and we can only go up from where we are. So I think that's what's exciting. And people are starting to, like I said, people are like, where'd you get that? Where, and their friends are like, I got this at Jolie. Let's go have a shopping day at Jolie. So it's kind of, hopefully just up would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be really nice.
Just to kind of grow our clientele and to grow our awareness of our business and then our awareness of our nonprofits and just kind of keep growing our awareness of our community. Because I'm just very passionate about people. It's where it all comes back to. I'm just passionate about people. So
yeah, which I think is where it needs to start, no matter where you're starting. It's just being passionate about not only the people, but just about something. And so this is huge for our community, for our listeners, because there's such a huge demographic of, whether you're blue collar, white collar, private business, new emerging entrepreneur, or you're a powerhouse entrepreneur, or brick and mortar. My wife and I have kind of started talking about some stuff like that, early developments and that sort of thing. But that's the story that you shared, especially from a small town feel, where it kind of feels like how do I put this right? It kind of feels like our fields are disappearing, right? Our fields, our small town environments, our community driven events and stuff for a more corporate feel, which it's not terrible, but it also, to preserve that, what you guys are preserving is so important for not just Boerne, but for, I think, America. I think that's kind of the American feel, is you come together with people of a bunch of different backgrounds and demographics and for a common purpose. And so the passion part is obviously, it sounds like, is what's driving that.
Well, it also stems from, remembering where you came from. That's something that, like I said, like I threw out like a big name like JP Morgan Chase, they started as one bank.
Yeah.
HEB started as one store, and now they're the number one grocer in the nation, and they're only in Texas.
They're my favorite too.
Amazon started out of Jeff Bezos' garage.
Bookstore. Yeah.
A bookstore. Facebook started in a dorm room. So, it's like they started small and they grew. That's just something, like, people can have big dreams and big, it just, again, remembering where you came from, giving all glory to God in everything you do, every minute and everything you do, just making sure you give everything back to Him is huge. And just continuing to serve others as God served, as Jesus served others, and using the gifts that He gave you to grow with that. Because He wouldn't have given you the gifts for them to just sit idly by. So
absolutely,
kind of,
absolutely.
I think that's
amen.
we all need a constant reminder about that. So
yeah, I could not agree more.
Yeah.
Well, we are so blessed just to have had you on the show specifically. Thank you for heeding our call to jump on and share this unique story. I'm very interested to make sure that you're able to plug Jolie's, not only their social, but some of those events that are coming up. My wife might be interested in that, and I bet some listeners' wives will be as well.
Yeah. So our social media handle for Jolie is at Joli Boutique Boerne, and Boerne is Boerne. And then for all the other events that Main Street and Boerne have coming up, you can just follow the Boerne retailers on Instagram or on Facebook. It's the Boerne Retailers and Restaurants Organization.
Okay.
So I don't exactly remember the handle. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'll make sure that it's all on here.
I think it's like at BRROA or something like that. But
got it.
But you can just follow us on those, and you'll see all the upcoming events. There's also the Hill Country Mile. That's another great organization that's an entity of the city that promotes our downtown area. They partner with our visitor center to promote downtown Boerne. But we've got events like in October, we have a hot rod show that's going to close down Main Street and cover the plaza.
Now we're talking.
Right? We do have some of the dice too.
Yeah.
I think that's the second or third weekend in October. I think it's the second weekend. But yeah, they bring out hot rods and the guys get to watch the cars and the girls get to shop, and it's just, there's going to be great food and live music. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun time, but we've got so many great events like that, again, like we've talked about constantly, just repeating that community over competition. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. And thank you for giving us an inside look into Boerne and the community and the growth. And we're going to be praying for Joli Boutique and up.
Thank you.
Just up.
Thank you. Just up. That's all.
Just up.
That's it.
Hey, shirt idea. Shirt idea.
Just up.
Just up.
Instead of
Thank
just
you,
do
Ashley.
it, it's just up. Thank you,
That's
guys.
That's it. Thank you so much. It was such a blessing.
Awesome. Y'all have a great night. I feel so honored. Thank you again.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Bye, y'all.